All right. Are live. All right, let's get started with it. A multi-groove bending shoe is to be fully charted for 3/4 inch, 1 inch, inch and a quarter, and inch and a quarter rigid metal conduit. How many center of bend marks will need to be placed on the shoe? So if you look at something like well, this isn't super helpful because it's got like a bunch of extra. So you need to find like if you're going to be bending with center of bend. So my disclaimer at the beginning of this is I haven't seen anybody actually bending with center of bend. It brings a handful of extra concerns while you're bending. That it's one of those things that's using center of bends is clearly better. Like you will bend better conduit. It will take longer and there's more room for error using center of bend. And what I mean whenever I say center of bend, I closed my let's look at this Chicago bender. Along these grooves, and this is actually I think it's inch and a quarter and 2 inch, maybe? I don't know. Anyway, along this groove is the center of the bend you're trying to bend. One way of bending everything is you measure off of the front of this shoe right here. And if you measure everything off the front of the shoe, and you take your time and do things one step at a time and everything like that, it's going to work out pretty good. That's how most people bend conduit around here. That's how I learned to bend conduit. That's how you have probably learned to bend conduit at this point, or up to this point. But we're going to talk about using center of bends because it is an alternative method that probably won't ever use, but it's on the test. So, using center of bend, each angle of bend has a specific center. If you remember when we bent saddles in the footbender, there was a center of 45 notch on the bender. So this is basically doing the same thing. Whenever you're planning your bends out, you determine where you want that center of the bend to fall. And then you take your measurements off of that spot. So your main angles are going to be 30, 45, I would say 15, 22 and a half, 30, and 45. You got 4 different bends that you need to find centers of and 3 different size conduits. So you're going to need to find 12 different bend centers, 4 for each size conduit. So 4 for each size conduit. What is the most common bend angle when determining radius adjustment? So generally they go with 45 degrees. So what is radius adjustment? Radius adjustment is what got drawn. Nothing I like. Radius adjustment is the distance from the center of the bend to the closest straight piece of conduit. So if you're trying to measure from a box to an obstacle, and then you, like, say it's 22 inches from the box to the obstacle. If you put your center of bend mark at 22 inches and bend it, the center, like, you're going to have your obstacle, and then the center of your bend is going to be hitting that obstacle, and it's going to make the end of the conduit stick up. So what you need to do is move that mark a little bit away. And that's all this radius adjustment is doing. It's, you find the 45-degree radius adjustment. Let's say it's 2 inches. If it was 22 inches from the box to your obstacle, you're measuring from here to here, you're going to subtract 2 inches to move your bend back this way. Just, just 2 inches so that you've got straight conduit hitting the obstacle. If you are going to, like, and you're going out and you're wanting to, say here's your obstacle, you want to send your conduit out and drop down past something, you would say it's 22, that the edge that you're trying to drop past is 24 inches away. Well, in that case, you're going to add your radius adjustment. So you're going to come out, this was your mark, you're going to put your radius adjustment 2 more inches, so 26 inches is where you'll put your mark. That makes sure your bend is away from your obstacle. That's all that radius adjustment is doing. And you only need to care about it if you're doing center of bend bending with your push-through bender. You don't care about it outside of that. So 45 degree is the most common angle. Same question. Be important. Okay. So the straight piece of raceway is marked as shown to create a 30-degree offset and a 90-degree bend as shown in the drawing. The conduit will need a 4-inch offset and a 90-degree bend at 44 inches. The take-up for the bender is 8 1/4 inches, and its radius adjustment is 4 1/4 inches. The offset is fabricated with 30-degree bends. The distance between Mark II and Mark III is blank. Okay. So Mark II is looks like the setback mark from the 90. Mark III is the second. Oh, are they really making you do all that? Okay. 30-degree bends. So that's a 1/4 inch of shrink per inch. The offset, 4 inches. Let's undo that so I can write some things down. So we got 4-inch offset. At 30 degrees, you have 30 degrees is a 1/4 inch per inch, so that means you have 1 inch of shrink, which means this mark needs to be pushed out an inch further. You can see on the straight piece of conduit, it's a little bit further out. Radius adjustment is 44 1/4. Okay, so there's 8 inches. I need that. Oh, 44. There's the piece of information I needed. Uh, Niagara bend at 44 inches. Okay, they're just saying it weird. They want the. That's the wrong page. They want the starting point, like, they want the end of the offset to be at 44 inches from the back of the 90. Okay. All that being said, we have an inch of shrink, so we're going to take 44. So we'll measure from our 90, from the back of our 90 out. Because that's what Mark II is representing as the back of the 90. It's called the setback mark. It's what we touched on in the last lesson. But you could just as well bend the 90 and then measure this from the back of the 90. Mark II and the back of the 90 are the same, essentially. All right. So 44 is our starting point. And then we have to, since it's the shrink is going to pull our number back, we have to add shrink of 1 inch. Remember, always do the opposite of what the word is. If it's shrink, you add it. If it's gain, you subtract it. We got 45. We have a radius adjustment of 4.25. Now, that's where they're essentially telling you there's an obstacle at 44 inches that you have to offset around. So that means you're moving your mark away from the obstacle with the radius adjustment. So we're going to subtract 44.25, giving us what? 40.75? 40 or 41. I'm doing the math in my head. Get when you lose your. Oh, I set my pen down on my pad. 40 3/4. That's the answer. Good job, the couple of y'all that got that. Looking at the explanation, here is the adding shrink. So there's 4 inches times 1/4 inch per inch shrink. And then you subtract the radius adjustment because you're moving away from the obstacle. You always use the radius adjustment to move away from the obstacle. Whether that's adding or subtracting, you have to judge that based on the situation. Okay. Same picture, but different scenario entirely. A 6-inch offset needs to clear an obstruction located 48 inches from the back. The stub up. Huh? Left side? We're going to ignore some of the details because they're confusing. That's not a good way to live life. The take up for the bender is 8 1/4 inches. Pretty much don't care about that right now. And the radius adjustment is 4 1/4. The offset is fabricated with 30 degrees. Okay, same. This is worded differently, but it's the same question. So we're going to take 48. We're going to add the shrinkage for 6 inches, so that's 1.5 inches. 48 plus inch and a half minus 4 1/4. All right, 48 plus inch and a half minus 4 1/4. That is it. All right, so that covers this one. The same question a second time, phrased differently, and still phrased confusingly. This is why people have trouble with these tests. Because if I had asked you this question, I wouldn't have used hardly any of these words. Okay, I couldn't even tell this question changed. Yep. Basically the same stuff. Different numbers. 4 1/4 is the same. 7 inch at 30 degrees. That's going to be what, inch and 3/4 that you add? And it's 46. I think that's the same. No, 48. So this one I forgot to put a correct answer in my answers, or whenever I built the quiz, but the correct answer is C. You can see that in the explanation, 43.5. There's the shrinkage right here. Here's the radius adjustment. So on all these, you're subtracting the radius adjustment. Take up minus gain is setback. Setback is the take up minus the gain. The setback represents, on a 90, the back of the 90. So if you go from the take up and move your mark back the gain amount, that's your setback. And that mark will represent the back of the 90 after you've bent. So if you wanted to lay out multiple bends on the same piece of conduit and live super dangerously, I say super, like there's so much more dangerous stuff, but you know, live dangerously and waste conduit, you could do that. But I would prefer to plan out my bends in a way that I don't need. Meaning, it's going to be super rare already that you need to bend all your bends without taking it out of the bender, ever. So, as long as you plan things so that you can take it out of the bender and like reevaluate after each bend, yeah, you shouldn't need to know about setback. But this is the formula for set. Oh, this was typed weird. That's a 22.5-degree bend. 45-degree bend when marking a bending shoe will be about the trade size of a conduit. That's true. It's a weird coincidence, but different distance between the 22.5 and the 45. Like, why not just find them yourself? But if you are, you know, determined to just, you know, shorten things, you can find your 45 and then move it the trade size of the conduit. So it'd be, if it was 1.5 inches, you would just measure 1.5 inches down the shoe and put your 22.5-degree mark. All right. In this one here, set up this fourth quiz. Segmented bends. And I will see you guys in a couple hours. All right. Bye.